Hello, everyone. Welcome to the last panel of the day, which is going to be about international space industry. We will cover international competition and collaboration. I am pleased to introduce you to our wonderful moderator, Dr. Minu Ratnasabapathy. She is a research engineer at the MIT Media Lab and a project fellow of the Future of Space at the World Economic Forum. Thank you.
Great. Hello, everybody, and thank you so much to Estelle. We know that this is the last session before appetizers and wine, so we will make it worth your while, but thank you all for joining us today. I'm really honored to be moderating this session focused on international partnerships and collaboration, and really thinking about how this collaboration is driving the future of the space industry. So if we think about the industry today, we know that there are more and more entrants from the private sector, but also government, that is completely shifting the way the industry looks and works as well. So if we think about just on a governmental scale, so the United Nations Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, UN COPUS, just in the past decade, the memberships of COPUS have increased by 40%. So right now, COPUS stands at 104 member state delegations, which is pretty incredible to think about. So today's panel is really going to focus on the role of these international collaborations, but also my panelists are going to give a few examples of how international partnerships are really evolving innovation within the space industry as well. So I am delighted to be joined by really this incredible distinguished leaders from both government as well as the commercial sector that are at the forefront of not just space exploration, but commercial space ventures as well. And I will say collectively, not to age anybody on this panel, but collectively they bring over 80 years of experience within the space sector. So we have a lot to learn from them. So I know that many of you have traveled far. Thank you so much for being here, and let's jump straight in. So to my left is Weena Kurisan, who is the president of Arianespace, and who has the responsibility of guiding their customer, industry, and governmental relations at the company's US affiliation. He also has directly engaged with the sales activities across the US and Canadian launch service market, joining Arianespace in 2000 and then becoming the president in 2016. So thank you so much for joining us, Weena. In the middle, we have Geraldine Naja. Geraldine is the Director of Commercialization, Industry, and Procurement at ESA, holding over 30 years of experience, expertise, and knowledge within the European space sector, and really focusing her work on programmatic, managerial, and strategy development positions. So thank you so much, Geraldine, all the way from France. So super appreciate you being here as well. And last but not least, we have Mike Lindsay, who's the CTO of Astroscale, and who's responsible for driving the company's overall technical strategy and shaping the future services and mission architectures. He's got over 15 years of experience in both commercial as well as government space industries, and prior to joining Astroscale, was the director of spectrum architecture at OneWeb and also holding positions at NASA and Google as well. So really a breadth of expertise here. So I want to start with maybe a quote-unquote easy question. And we know that just within the past year itself, the achievements of the space industry have been pretty remarkable. I mean, I say that to an audience at a space conference, so I feel like I'm preaching to the converted here. But I'd love each of you just to spend a couple of minutes talking about, firstly, your companies or organizations, but what got you really excited in 2023 about your particular company's achievements? Weena, if I could start with you.
Me, I will start a little bit further back. In December 2021, on Christmas Day, we launched the James Webb Space Telescope. I mean, for me personally and for the company, that was a good achievement. I remember when I get to Arianespace 20 years ago, I was working on the proposal to ESA, then to NASA for this space telescope. And then on Christmas Day 2021, we got a great launch. And then I can remember, I was not at the launch site, I was at home, and I had my grandkids. They were opening gifts around, and I was in the other room watching it on TV. And then I screamed, and one of my grandsons came over and said, "Dad, what was your gift? What was your gift?" I couldn't even explain to him. My gift was just launched. It was an amazing experience. And then from that, in 2022 and 2023, as you know, the Ariane 5 were the mainstay of our launch vehicle, has been retired last summer, and we're transitioning to the Ariane 6 vehicle. The past year, basically in 2023, we've done all kind of testing. We've tested the rocket fully assembled on the launch pad. We fired the main engine for the full duration of the rocket. And then we won some tests also in Germany on the full upper stage, which we have never done before. We used to test the engine separately. The test we won in Germany this time around was a full up stage, very successful, which brings us basically to the point where right now we are erecting the launch vehicle on the launch pad for the first launch late June, early July this year.
Amazing. And I want to get into a little bit about the technical developments of the Ariane 6 later on.
Okay.
Geraldine, please, what excites you in 2023 about ESA?
Well, actually, Wiener started, and I will continue. You started with the James Webb Space Telescope launch, which was a splendid launch. We got the first images, and I want to, of course, recall that the James Webb Space Telescope, you were talking about collaboration and international cooperation, is an international cooperation program. And we are very happy in Europe to contribute to 1.5 out of the 4 scientific instruments on the telescope. And we got amazing first images, but also amazing first results, which show, for instance, that galaxies and black holes formed earlier than initially imagined, or initially, let's say, reflected on. And this could change the way we view the early thousands of years of our universe and generally cosmology. So I think we are very lucky to live through these times. And in 23, to continue on the launches part, we have also had 2 amazing launches, one on SpaceX and one on Ariane 5. We had, of course, Euclid, a European scientific mission designed to study dark matter, dark energy, and JUICE, which is also an international cooperation mission with the US, with Japan, to study the Jupiter icy moons, and which was launched on the last, one before last, Ariane 5. So we have very exciting science programs at the time being, but I could quote many others.
Right, there's so many different departments within ESA itself, so yeah, I appreciate that. Mike, I know that just a couple of weeks ago, Astroscale did a launch, and I hope it reaches one of your priorities for highlights, but if you could expand a little bit more.
Yeah, of course, thank you. Well, first, I'm on the stage with some very well-known organizations, so if I may first, for those of you who aren't familiar, just give a brief sentence about Astroscale. We are a company focused on the sustainable development of space through the provisioning of in-orbit services. This includes active debris removal, end-of-life services, life extension, inspection, refueling, and more. So yeah, last year we delivered our spacecraft for launch. This is the Address-J spacecraft. And speaking of international collaboration, this was a spacecraft built in Japan and then launch from New Zealand. This happened February 18th of this year. Very excited about this mission because this mission will be the first ever commercial demonstration of a spacecraft approaching and rendezvousing with an actual piece of space debris. So ADRAS-J is currently on its way to rendezvous with a H-2A upper stage. This is a 3-ton derelict upper stage. It's been up there for a couple decades now. You can actually track the TLEs online. ADRAS-J is about 600 kilometers away at the moment. But the mission will have us rendezvous, get very close, take some imagery, infrared, LiDAR data. This will be the first time we actually get some insight into a debris object. How is it tumbling? How does it behave? What does the surface look like? How does it respond to our sensors? What we're doing is really paving the way here for a future ADR mission, active debris removal, that will actually remove this 3-ton object from space. So yeah, we're very excited about this. Thanks.
Incredible, and congratulations on the launch.
you.
And I also know that you're working quite closely with JAXA, so what a great example of government and private partnership as well. So deep diving into international cooperation and collaboration, maybe Geraldine, to you. ESA, of course, has 22 member states, as well as associate members and corporate agreements. You work with the private industry and international space agencies. Can you talk a little bit about the ethos of international collaboration with ESA, particularly as we think about bigger missions or long-term missions that are going to only be launched in 5 to 10 years? We're only going to see results in X many years.
Yes, absolutely. ESA is all about international cooperation. Already, as you mentioned, we have 22 member states, 4 associate states, and a long-standing cooperation with Canada. So already our daily work is about having countries work together and having industry also work together. Because our programs gather all these member states. They are very flexible, most of them, meaning countries can choose to participate or not. So we can have programs with 3 states up to 25 or whatever. So it's quite a flexible setup. And of course, the corresponding industrial consortia also gather industry from all over Europe. But in addition, as you rightly point out, most of our programs, especially the science ones, be it earth sciences to understand how our planet functions, or the climate change, or space sciences, the understanding of the universe, solar system, life in it, are done in international collaboration. When I joined ESA, many years ago, as you pointed out, I started working on the International Space Station. It was just paper then, and it was incredibly exciting to start working at ESA on a program which initially gathered the US, Japan, Europe, and Canada, and then extended to Russia. And still today, I must say, it's working. And it's been an incredible program, and I really look forward now to see what will happen next. But what I know is that we will be part of what happens next, be it in LEO or around the moon or on the moon.
Incredible. And I have to ask a follow-up question, which is, if your career has spanned ISS on paper to now, end of life for ISS, how do you feel?
Well, as I say, I feel privileged to have followed it through, but also I feel very lucky to see. I mean, today was very rewarding in that sense. I mean, the cislunar panel or the intervention from Mr. Bridenstine. I mean, it's so exciting to see what's happening, but also in the launcher sector. I mean, of course, we are very soon launching Ariane 6 and will be happy to. But in Europe, we also have a bunch of small privately developed launchers, which will launch probably very soon. And that too is something which was not really thinkable when I started working, where it was mostly very large corporations, publicly funded programs, and etc. And to see the development of new space and all these private initiatives is overwhelming.
Incredible, incredible. And what's interesting as well is, as we talk about ESA with 22 member states, it's also led to having other regions consider how they can emulate the ESA model. So in 2019, the African Space Agency was initiated. 54 African member states were thinking about how they could follow the ESA model to bring together resources to really have a pan-African agency. Yeah. So talking about these new entrants to the industry, Weena, I want to turn to you because Arianespace has many, many clients, a lot of international clients as well. And I know just recently you helped to launch a few satellites from Thailand and Taiwan. So I'm wondering how Arianespace also looks at international cooperation and really enabling the launch of countries that don't otherwise have access to some of these launch markets and services.
Well, let me give you a little bit of how the company was started, really. In the 70s, there were two launch countries, the US and Russia. And France wanted to launch a satellite in the early 70s. They came to the US, obviously, they didn't go on the other side of the Iron Curtain. They came to the US and asked for a launch. NASA told them, yes, we can give you a launch, but you'll have to wait in line. It's probably 7-8 years to wait. They came back, and they realized they needed access to space. And then this is how the company, Arianespace, started. The company started in that sense for government purpose, access to space for Europe, but it turns out this created also the commercial side of the launch vehicle business. This is the commercial side of the launch vehicle was created by Arianespace. And by doing that, we always at the forefront discussing with customers at the early stage of projects. I mean, I can name a lot of companies that we basically put on the market. We launched a satellite, but we really launched their business. SES is one of them. We launched their first satellite. And I can still remember when I went to work at SES at some point, somebody telling me, if that launch didn't work, there wouldn't be SES. I can name OneWeb. I can name O3B, a bunch of small companies that started, and we supported them in developing their project, et cetera, et cetera. Internationally, like I said, we are a small company. We have a small base of customers. However, we are present here in the US, obviously, in the Washington office that I lead. We are present in Asia, in Singapore. We have an office in Singapore. We have an office in Tokyo. And we have, obviously, the main office in France, in Paris, and the launch base in French Guiana. So our customer is the main part of our business. Serving customers, I think it's our DNA. And I think in that sense, all of the international aspect of it. And we do work, we're in competition with a lot of launch vehicles, but we also work very much in cooperation. We have cooperation with MHI on their new vehicle. We have cooperation in India with ISRO on their vehicle. We have, obviously, with the US, we talk with the different manufacturers in the US. And it's a small business, literally. So we keep, the cooperation going internationally. They give me the count this morning. I was amazed. We have launched satellite for 100 nations.
Wow.
That's more than half of the world.
Incredible.
Okay? We have launched, 145 customers. So we are really an international company working on international cooperation, and we are open to, and with the new space, as they call it these days, a lot of small companies showing up here and there. I mean, during the summer, there is a conference in Utah. You go down there and you see it's poorly, I cannot see you, but a bunch of kids, literally, excited and working and trying to find a way to make things happen. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that number. That's incredible. Over 100 nations. And it's great to see that you're supporting and enabling not just the private sector, but emerging countries who otherwise would not have launch options. So, Mike, over to you. So you talked a little bit about this because you said, Japanese headquarters, you just launched the satellite from New Zealand. I know that you have 4 subsidiaries across the world. You've got a partnership with the UK. And you're also talking about space sustainability, which is an absolutely global topic. So how does Astroscale then really tackle the collaboration, the international collaboration?
Yeah, sustainability is gaining a lot of attention lately, which is great to see. And it was mentioned in the first panel today, actually, that sustainability in space doesn't really work if there's only one entity who's pushing for best practices or what they view as the right thing to do. To borrow from a cliche, space has no borders. So we're all in this shared resource, utilizing it, and we need to make sure that we're not necessarily in lockstep, but close to it and coordinated and moving in the same direction. So yeah, as you mentioned, Astroscale has a global presence, and we're international by the very nature of the company, and this allows us to have conversations with various governments who are developing guidelines pertaining to sustainability, and allows us to have that that domestic focused conversation, but also we provide a resource that has international reach because we're having conversations and dialogues with multiple companies around the world, partners, other administrations who are facing the exact same issues and have the same questions. So we are trying to help coordinate these standards, really. For example, to really achieve sustainability, we see that in-orbit servicing needs to be part of the overall ecosystem in space. But currently, there are many nations who just don't have the regulations to support such an activity. Just the very permission to dock with another object is not well defined. And spectrum availability, in-orbit servicing is so nascent and the mission profiles are so new that at the ITU, there's no allocations that are specified for that particular type of use, yet everyone recognizes that we need this. So Astroscale is trying to foster these dialogues that are going to lead to common approaches that will enable this. And so that's both on a practical level and I did say I warned Starfish. I'd go back to a comment made earlier about the balance between performance-based standards and technical standards, and which one is better. We definitely see a place for both of those to really foster this in-orbit infrastructure and economy. Of course, yes, the point that was made is very valid. We need to be cautious that we don't prohibit a future solution. We don't want to lock into a very technical, specific solution, but we can find a balance that actually fosters growth, and I think that's very important. And so far the dialogue has been great. We've seen a lot of new interest. A lot of administrations are putting a very high importance on sustainability.
Incredible. Happy to hear that. And I want to come back to a point that you said, which is, fosters growth, but also how do we not limit ourselves to any one technology or any one way of thinking. And while cooperation does serve for that, on the other side, we can also see competition as being an enabler of innovation. And so, Geraldine, I want to come back to you. Given your role at ESA, do you think ESA leans towards collaboration, competition? Is there a healthy competition that you would say inspires the work at ESA?
ESA leans towards space, and space is about a mix of cooperation and competition. So, I mean, obviously, you were mentioning the need for a certain, let's say, international consensus. If we are going to solve the issue of debris, we can say the same about climate change, and science in general are, I mean, typical places for cooperation. But even there, you have a certain competition or emulation among teams, and this is very healthy. And also, when, I mean, by our industrial policy, we have to have competitive bidding on our programs, and it's very important that we can have also this intra-European competition to keep our industry competitive, as we do have, of course, we are in competition, and I say we, European industry, is in competition with non-European industry on all commercial markets. Now, of course, commercial markets, I mean, in space, many markets are not fully commercial. There are also some, let's say, captive markets. But on the commercial markets, yes, we are in competition, and it's very healthy. I think this mix is very good.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's always this negative connotation when you mention the word competition. But if you see it as an enabler, I think it's, you know, it's a different way of thinking. Weena, I want to come back to you because you briefly mentioned Ariane 6, and we are all very eagerly waiting for the launch. You alluded to, in your opening remarks, just a couple of the advancements and the developments. What are we going to see? What are we expecting? And how is that changing the landscape of the launch market?
One of the main things on the Ariane 6 compared to our previous launch vehicles, the upper stage has a restartable engine, which means that we can tailor the missions to different orbits, obviously, and to more accurately deliver the spacecraft or the constellation where they need to be. The new engine, the Vinci engine, developed at Ariane Group, basically can be restarted 4 times. So on a normal mission, you'll restart the engine twice, and the last starting is to deorbit the stage, because nowadays with in fact the French law requires us to put the upper stage either to deorbit it completely or to put it in a safe orbit to avoid collision. So that upper stage has been qualified to do all of that, and it is well suited to really launch constellation. In other words, multiple satellites in one launch, where they go to different orbit. And one of the really technical advance we made on this rocket was what we call an auxiliary power unit. That auxiliary power unit serves 2 purposes. One, it does pressurize the tanks, and also it uses the exhaust to push the rocket also to give it more performance. And also, when we separate different body in space, this is the system we use to put the different spacecraft in the right orbit and for the right separation. So that unit is the first time that we're using it on the rocket, and it's been tested multiple times on the ground, and we think that will give us a certain advantage really on the marketplace, both on the LEO satellite, on the MEO satellite, the low Earth orbit, medium Earth orbit, and also on the GTO satellite, where we're in a position now we can put a satellite in this final orbit without, for the satellite itself, to carry the propellant to put it in the geostationary orbit.
Incredible.
So this is what we hope this summer we will be celebrating a new rocket.
We will be watching.
Thank you.
And I know that during the break we talked a little bit about it, but can you talk a little bit about how the Ariane 6 is also thinking about sustainability, building on what Mike was saying? We talked about different fuels and...
Yes, right now the rocket that we have use 2 solid motor rockets. And the solid motor rockets are pollutants, let's face it. But the main part of the rocket use liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen. So that's good, clean propellant. Right now, the future of Ariane, we think, it's in reusability like everybody else. And we're looking at the new a small rocket we're developing at Ariane Group called Maya will be a reusable rocket, and that will be the building block of the next Ariane after Ariane 6. And that rocket will use methane and oxygen, liquid oxygen, but that will reduce the footprint of the pollution for the rocket itself.
Incredible. So Maya to also look out for is the next building block to Ariane 6. Mike, to come back to you, so Weena talked about, shifting some designs to be more sustainable. I know Astroscale is thinking more about sustainability in space. But as we talk about more and more actors, the table is getting bigger, there's more voices at the table to talk about issues on space sustainability, which, let's be honest, I think is a good thing. But it does take a longer time to come to consensus, especially at, say, UN discussions. In your view, how is this dynamic really changing the perception of space sustainability on a global scale?
Yeah, it's been an interesting evolution over the years. I think originally sustainability was kind of seen as a cost, an expense, a burden. Tough to comply with regulations. And then I think there was a next stage of evolution where I saw that sustainability was kind of being used as a tool, in some ways kind of greenwashing, but also maybe operators taking competitive outlook on, oh, they're not sustainable, or they are not doing this, we're doing that. And I think there's some confusion about that because there weren't any agreed to metrics. If you ask a room, I guess this room even, if you ask what does sustainability mean for you in space, you're going to get many different answers and many different metrics. And so, I think there's some really great science and conversations happening on the international level to try to come to a consensus on this. Because, without a consensus on what it means, I think it's going to be really tough to move forward in the right direction. That said, I think more recently, there's been a lot of positivity around sustainability. So it has fostered, I think, some really healthy competition. When you look at various administrations, there's a lot of missions and a lot of excitement around active debris removal. We have one group that wants to deorbit 100 kilograms. Another group wants to do 3 tons. Another group wants to do 2 items. And then, this one's going to be refueled. And so you see this growth in trust in the capabilities of in-orbit servicing. And that's very important for accelerating the technologies and maturing the mission operations and this increasing the safety. And we're very grateful actually for the support from these administrations, because that's going to be an enabling factor in a commercial industry that kind of grows out of that. And then kind of the latest stage that we're getting into now, which is really great to see internationally, is that sustainability is no longer seen as a burden or an expense, but an investment and a value. It's important to keep your orbits clean. It's beneficial to reuse. And so it's no longer a fad, but it's the right place to invest and put effort in developing these technologies. So we're great to be part of that. We're very grateful.
Incredible. And it's also beneficial for the long-term business model of companies who want to continue to use these orbits in a secure, responsible way as well, right? So, yeah. Geraldine, we heard from the organizers that this year there are more founders and startups than ever before. And I know with your role at ESA, it's really about boosting commercialization and business development. And I wonder whether, speaking to the audience, especially to the innovators in this room, is there a secret sauce or piece of advice that you can share for them to not just survive in the industry, but really thrive and push forward their ideas?
Wow.
Get started. Take notes.
No, first, maybe just to say a word, also, which could be of interest of perhaps several people in the room. Indeed, we have what we call the Business Incubator Network in ESA, in the European Space Agency. We have now 29 incubators across Europe, and we have incubated more than 2,000 startups as of now. So yes, we are very active in there. And it's a big success. And if I was to give an advice, I am not sure, because the best advice is, of course, the advice we give to investors. And the investors, what do they look for? Is good ideas, and they look for good teams. And I think what they invest primarily, if I understand well, in is a person with a project. But they are very, let's say, so the most important is to have a good idea, but to have a good idea that is built around a potential market or a potential customer. It's not just, I have this thing, what could I use it for? It's more to think, to project yourself also on the side of who could be interested in using it, who could be interested in paying for it, if it's a service or a product, etc. So always think with the view of the potential customer, and sell yourself as you have an idea, you are an entrepreneur, and you want to go for it. Because we work a lot, we have also a network of investors next to our network of incubators, and they submit certain files to us to have our advice. Is it feasible? Does it respond to a need, a market? Is it realistic, etc.? But we also present to them our most promising innovations or startups. Mm-hmm. And there it's clear they look for a good team.
Incredible. Okay, so good people, good teams, and great ideas, of course. I do want to open up to the audience for questions, but before we do that, just one more question to you, Weena, because you were telling me before you have 35 to 40 years of experience in the industry, and so given the fact that we're at an academic setting, you're talking to a number of students here. I wonder if you could share a little bit about your career trajectory and how you got to where you are and how you see the future of the industry and how can this next generation of students really make an impact?
Well, I've been 40 years in the business. I started, well, first, I am from Haiti. A lot of people have heard about Haiti. Lately, not in good sense. It's not very good down there. So I left Haiti and I went to college in Canada, in Montreal. I went to Polytechnique in Montreal and then McGill University. From there, I went to work at what is Lockheed Martin today, but used to be RCA in the satellite division. And I started I'm not an aerospace engineer, I'm a mechanical engineer. So I started as a mechanical engineer working on a satellite project. And from there, I worked at RCA for about 12 years, get into systems engineering. And then from there, I met my future employer because we were building a satellite for them, which is SES. And working on the satellite, I made some contracts, and at some point they told me, maybe you should come work for us in Luxembourg. Luxembourg, family here, Luxembourg, that little tiny thing. So ultimately, I get convinced. I went to work in Luxembourg. I worked 6 years in Luxembourg as a system spacecraft engineering. And then from that point, I kind of migrate toward launch vehicle because at that point, they were starting to launch their spacecraft on the Proton rocket, the Russian rocket. So this is how I evolved into the launch vehicle business, basically. So from there, from Luxembourg, I went to work for Arianespace in Paris for a few months. And that's when I really get into the launch vehicle business. I mean, it was all launch vehicle and technical work. And then I moved to the US office, where I do sales and marketing for North America, basically. And I do really sales and marketing. And we have sold, I don't know, $6 or $7 billion of business from the office in DC, in Washington only. It's just to tell you, and like I was telling you, I used to have people who are my customers. I become their customers in the same environment, in the same business. It's a small world. We will meet the people in different cases. This is my ex-customer on the left completely. But it is so challenging and so interesting that I think after 40 years, if I had to start again, I will start the same way. I mean, this is no greater satisfaction than working on a project like the James Webb Space Telescope, working on proposal 20 years ago with NASA where nobody thought it was going to happen. ESA get in there, finally get us the contract, and then you get into a meeting, a NASA meeting, there is 70 people in the room, okay? And from all around the world. So I think this is stimulating. This is the great field to be in. And like I said, I couldn't see the younger crowd in front of me here. But to the younger crowd who are interested in getting into a career, I think the space business is the way to go. The future right now is bright, really bright. I mean, there's so many opportunities out there, from small startup to established company that has to rearrange themselves to be competitive. So the business is, the sky is the limit. Literally, the sky is the limit.
It's a great way to conclude the session. We've got about 10 minutes for questions, and I would love to hear from the audience as well. We've got a few roving microphones, I see. Are they questions? We can't see you. It's very...
I've got you, Minu. So this is Erica Wagner, Blue Origin. Question, Minu, for you and Mike. I feel like as we start to talk about international and especially opportunities for early career and mid-career folks, there's a lot of great things going on through Space Generation Advisory Council, the Carmen Fellowship, the World Economic Forum, International Space University. Could you all maybe say a little bit about those sort of grassroots opportunities for folks to get connected internationally?
Great. The great question. Mike, do you want to start? Because I know that you were a Carmen Fellow just recently.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, thanks. I guess I can speak about opportunity in the context of being a global company. I know that one of our advantages is that we're not limited to the same constraints of just having a U.S. presence. So we are able to hire internationally at our various offices at all levels. We do have internship programs at all of our offices. I will say that, at our stage, I wish we could have more. So we're always, disappointed that we can't take on more interns in that generation. But it's been fantastic to bring them on board and kind of get them up to speed because, Astroscale is still, we're about 600 people, so I wouldn't say startup, but we're still kind of a startup. And in each of our global offices is much smaller than that. It's a great opportunity to kind of jump into technical matters and then have that international element, which I think is also a really great opportunity because you're working with different cultures, different set of norms, of policies, and yeah, so come talk to me if anyone's interested.
Absolutely. Geraldine, I know you want to add.
Well, I just wanted to compliment in a way also the Carmen Fellowship. I'm participating in the selection, and I can confirm it's a fantastic opportunity worldwide. ISU, thanks for bringing it up. The International Space University is also, we have a number of fellowships. And of course, at the European Space Agency, we have, it's true mostly for the European nationalities, but still, I know there are quite a few at the MIT. We have young graduate traineeships, we have young professional programs, we have trainees, traditional trainees. So, I think it's really very beautiful to see all these new opportunities, which really foster collaboration from the beginning.
Absolutely. And I will say, so prior to joining MIT, thanks for the shout out, Erica, I was the executive director for the Space Generation Advisory Council, which is an organization that represents students and young professionals between the ages of 18 to 35, 15,000 members, 110 countries. It's really incredible. So if anybody wants to meet me, I'll be at the bar afterwards. So come and talk to me about Carmen, ISU, Forum, Space Gen, et cetera, But
and by the way, the next International Astronautical Congress is in Milano this year.
Right.
And there will be, for the first time, an industry career forum allowing potential employers and potential staff to meet and to have, let's say, exchange at the forum. So for those of you which are interested, come to Milano. It's a very beautiful city too.
Absolutely. Questions from the audience?
Awesome, yeah. My name is Brendan Swanek. I'm with Voyager Space. This is a question for you, Geraldine. I feel like a safe interpretation of your role would be to engender healthy competition with European members of ESA. How do you balance creating competition within Europe as well as keeping all of your international relations outside of ESA member states? So for example, relationships with the US and engendering commercial growth in those types of countries, including those within ESA as well.
Well, it's, I guess you're asking about industrial policy in the end, or?
Yeah, essentially, how do you balance the two?
Well, we have a rather clearly defined industrial policy in the sense that for our own contracts, developing satellites, launchers, you name it, we give preference to European industry, and there's even rules about how to balance, let's say, contracts across Europe. All our international corporations are usually without exchange of funds. So, for instance, we were talking about the James Webb Space Telescope. There is no exchange of funds. It was launched by an Ariane, but NASA didn't procure the Ariane in that sense. I mean, it was in the frame of the corporation. So I'm in charge of contracts, and my contracts are usually placed with European companies, except for SpaceX, where we bought a couple of launchers recently, but that's just conjectural. And for as I say, for international corporation, it is usually each partner pays for its side of the corporation. So that's how it works.
We have a couple of minutes more. We've got a question in the front here, unless somebody else is holding a microphone. I can't see one in the back.
Hi, my name's Helena, and in your panel you mentioned the importance of teams, and I do agree with that. And I'd love to hear from your experience what you believe the most important aspects of successful team dynamics are.
I think to have a clear vision that is understood by all and communicated, really, to know that, I will come back to international cooperation. I think what I really appreciate most, perhaps, at ESA, as I see in many teams here as well, is the richness that brings a different set of cultures. So the good teams are the diverse ones, be it in gender, in geography, or generation. I mean, it's good to have diversity because it really makes for very rich exchanges, but it means also that it's a work as such to manage a completely diverse team. That is true. But I think it's well worth it, and the benefits far exceed. But to have a clear vision communicated and the sense that, to have a sense that everyone is participating at its own level to an endeavor that is globally positive. I have 2 daughters, and they are very young students. They asked me how to choose a job. And I said, for me, what matters, but it's personal, is a job that makes sense. And I think working in space, you never wonder why you have to get up to go to work, because it all makes sense. And I think that's very important.
Yeah. Brilliant. We have one final question here in the front.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Ian Dargan. I'm the founder of Ion Star Engineering. I have a question for Mike. We hear a lot about, and my company is focused on space debris removal. But there are some restrictions. Obviously, the regulations is lacking from an international standpoint. We also have a detectability issue and the accuracy as well for locating some of the smaller debris. Well, my question, I'm wondering how you reconcile. I know you've got that spacecraft satellite up there in February, and you're doing some work. How does it translate for revenue stream with the company? What do you see for a steady stream of income in now and to the future? Thank you.
Yeah, so this kind of goes back to what I was saying, is we're seeing a shift in how sustainability is viewed, and it's going from a burden to an investment. Right now, at the stage we're at, we're working with governments. We have a number of government contracts that are focused on debris inspection, concepts in debris removal, refueling, life extension. So yeah, primarily these are government contracts, but the idea is that as space continues to be more useful, and it already is, this will have very important commercial value. The space economy is only growing. And if we do not have a way to maintain that region of space that is so valuable and heavily utilized, then the value quickly decreases. Risk goes up. You can no longer, the other space industries can no longer profit if the expense of operating and conducting your business is too great. You can no longer insure your spacecraft. This gets extreme, but yeah, you start to have your launch windows narrowed. You can't operate at the right altitudes because there's too much traffic or too much space debris there. So the commercial value is there. It's right now it's a matter of proving the technology, showing that it is possible, establishing standards that will foster a competitive market. You have multiple solutions. That's something that's very important for this economy. So yeah, right now it's government, but quickly it'll expand to commercial as well.
Great. Thanks so much, Mike. That's a really nice way to end the panel, because I think as we talk about the future of the new space economy, the future of the industry, international partnerships, I think we also need to think about how we are going to be responsible users and actors within the space environment to ensure that long-term we can continue to be growing the industry. So please give a hand to my fantastic panelists. Thank you. And I will hand it back. Thank you.
Thank you. We end on a high note with this last panel of the day. Very quick closing remark, I promise. On behalf of the MIT Space Industry Club, we would like to thank you, our sponsors, for making today possible. We would like to thank our speakers for being here today, and to you all, we hope you enjoy it, and we look forward to seeing you here next year. Now let's go have some drinks. Thank you.